So with that said, does this help or hinder, strengthen or weaken the Republican Party moving forward? The whole purpose of having the state party deliver an endorsement, which they haven't done previously. Again, this isn't the nomination. This is just an endorsement from the state party organization. They've not done that. They've welcomed the candidates to come and campaign and build support, but they never said, you are the endorsed candidate at this convention. So let's talk to Jim Walsh himself, an elected official, of course, state representative from the Aberdeen-Hoquiam area. Good morning, Jim Walsh. How are you, sir?
Good morning, John. I'm good. Getting ready for another week ahead of us, and a few weeks and a few months. We look forward to November, where we hope we're going to really change the direction of this state.
Well, I wanted to I want to say to our listeners what I said to you the other day, which is I thought you individually, as the chairman, were dealt a terrible hand, and you played it as well as you could over the weekend to those who watched the convention where, Jim was presiding. Not an easy job, and I thought you handled a very tough assignment pretty well.
Well, thanks. It was, as we'd said for weeks and months leading up to the convention, it was real. This was not scripted. This was not staged or choreographed. This was not a coronation, as some people have called other conventions. This was real. This was a throwback to the great political conventions of the 1950s and the 1960s, or maybe even the 1920s. This was nearly 2,000 delegates from all over the state of Washington, the overwhelming majority of them first-time delegates. We asked toward the end of the convention how many, the delegates on the floor, how many for you, is this the first time you've been at a political convention? And probably 2/3, maybe 3/4 of them raised their hands.
So how
a lot of new people.
Okay, so how representative of the Republican Party was the delegation that showed up in Spokane, do you think, Jim?
Well, it was a subset, to be sure. I mean, it was more people who are activists by temperament and nature than not, and certainly people who were passionate. I mean, it was raucous. It was real. Mm-hmm. They were fired up. They were very emotional for all that means, and they want change. They want change in this state and its government, in its direction, even beyond government. They want a state where the Constitution is revered, where individual rights and individual liberties are protected and celebrated.
Okay.
And where this kind of top-down, mandate-driven, compliance-driven authoritarianism is overturned. And those are good instincts, John, even if they are stated emotionally and even if they are raw.
Okay.
I think the instinct for change is good.
So let us cut to the chase. Every poll I've seen shows the other Republican in the race, Dave Reichert, running either 4-1 or 5-1 ahead of Semi Bird in every poll. Dave Reichert has never lost an election. Semi Bird has won one election, and he got recalled from office, got fired by the Republican voters of Richland. And yet, over 70% of the delegates at this convention voted to endorse someone for governor who, again, is trailing in a whole series of polls by either a 4-to-1 or 5-to-1 ratio. How does that make the state Republican Party look?
Well, it's complicated, John. Dave Reichert withdrew from consideration at the convention. So the final number there was certainly affected by that. John, as you know, the dynamics, the mechanics, the politics of a convention are different than other kinds of dynamics and mechanics in politics. I mean, convention politics are very grassroots. They are very one-on-one,
mm-hmm.
and they are not like how you run the mechanics of a general election campaign. And I think that Dave Reichert's campaign, his organization, his crew were caught a little off guard. I think they were caught a little flat-footed by what you need to do to win a convention, to succeed at a convention. Let me give you an example. There's a lot of attention, of course, paid in the governor's race, and that's understandable. But we did a lot more at the convention than just an endorsement in the governor's race. We endorsed in a whole bunch of statewide executive campaigns, races. A good example is the endorsement we made in the election for a superintendent of public instruction, to be the state superintendent of K-12 schools.
Mm-hmm.
In that race, we had a 4-person field, and at least 1 or 2 were probably the poll favorites. But another one of those 4 really worked the convention. He drove around the state.
Mr. Olson.
Met with delegates.
Mm-hmm.
David Olson, yes. And went one-on-one and talked to delegates, or at least a large part of them, either on the phone or in person directly, and asked them what they wanted out of a superintendent of schools. And this fellow, who's a school board member for some 10 years and very well known inside the K-12 education world.
And he prevailed.
Won.
Yeah. But then you also have Jamie Herrera Butler, who showed up at the convention, who had the endorsement of Joe Kent, the guy who beat her in the Republican primary in 2022, or in the primary in 2022. And she was, when she got up to speak, several dozen people in the audience stood up and turned their back on her and booed her and heckled her, and she got 14% of the vote. This is a respected former member of Congress, albeit one who also voted to have Donald Trump impeached after the January.
I think that was the rub there, John. That was the rub.
Okay.
Yes, Herrera Butler is a good candidate for the Commissioner of Public Lands. That is the head of DNR, the Department of Natural Resources, a critical elected position in this state, manages the public timberlands of this state, which have been mismanaged horribly for about 20 years, the last 2, maybe 3 elected commissioners. And she has some patching up to do with base voters in the Republican Party because of that vote to impeach Donald Trump. It's several years old, but it still stings with a lot of conservative voters.
Okay, so here's...
But again, don't underestimate her competition there. Her competition, the woman who did receive the endorsement,
Sue Peterson,
is, again, someone who has worked more directly with the grassroots and someone who is known inside politics, maybe not outside politics so well. She is the last Republican who ran. She ran 4 years ago for the Commissioner of Public Lands. So don't underestimate her opponent. Teal Peterson is a savvy politician.
No, I know Sue, and I endorsed her last time out, so I hear you on that. So was it a mistake to have the state party delegates endorse a candidate?
I don't think so, John. We are early in the process. The other key thing for listeners to remember is not only was this the largest political state convention in terms of the number of delegates either party ever in the history of the state. It's also one of the earliest ever. We moved the convention very early in the election year. And yes, we hoped that it would bring people together. And by the end of the convention, we were very unified. We sang America the Beautiful. People were very energized and happy, even though there had been some raucous moments. But we're in April, John. This is really the beginning of the election season this year. It will end in November. This is just the beginning. Okay. We have another step, a major step in this process in August, when we have our top two state primary. And then, of course, the real focus of everything is the general election in November. So this is just the opening act.
Okay.
Let's see what happens in the months and weeks ahead. And this election season is just starting. This is the first game of the season. The playoffs are in the fall, and the championship is in November.
Okay.
So let's stay focused on November, because that's when we need to be peaking, John. That's when we need to be winning. Right now, we're in the early days.
Tell me why you think what happened last weekend strengthens rather than weakens the Republican Party moving forward to more games, more in November.
Right. This shows everyone in the state, not just Republicans, not just conservatives. It shows everyone in the state that we are fearless. We are real. We are not going to run some staged, scripted, false thing. We're real, warts and all, elbows and knees and all. The Republican Party in Washington state is real. We represent real people who are really frustrated and even outraged at the mistakes of Jay Inslee and Bob Ferguson and their group. And these people, real people, want change in this state. And change isn't always pretty. You know, change can be loud. Change can be angry.
So what do you say to those?
It's our job as leaders to direct those emotions into a productive path.
Right. So,
and that's what we're going to do.
Why is Semi Bird the productive path rather than Dave Reichert?
Well, he gives voice to people who've been voiceless. And he represents a perspective about constitutional government that is humble, that is servant-based, not master-focused, and wants to serve the people of the state, not dictate to them and mandate to them how they must live, what they must do, how they can heat their home, what kind of fuel moves their cars.
So on major issues, do you see much difference? On major issues now, just look at the issues. Do you see much difference between Semi Bird and Dave Reichert?
No, I've said that all along. The difference between the two men is much more style and temperament than it is philosophy. Philosophically, they're close.
So if they're close, why would Semi Bird be the preferred choice, given his baggage and lack of executive experience and lack of status, rather than Reichert?
Well, I mean, the mechanical answer, John, is Reichert backed out of the convention.
Well, but he wasn't going to win. You and I know that he wasn't going to win anyway. He wasn't.
Well, I don't know that. I mean, if he and his campaign staff had worked the mechanics of a convention differently, I think he could have won.
No, I even told his staff that. Yes, that is true. I said months ago that they had been out organized, but. You said, and I think it's very relevant and germane, that this was real. That this convention is real and that this party is real. But what do you say to those who say, yeah, real out of touch? When
well, we're the ones who restored police pursuits in this state. We're the ones who stated a parent's Bill of Rights in this state. We're the ones who restated the state's tradition of no taxes based on personal income. Mm-hmm. We're the ones who are doing something about this cap and trade disaster and the high cost of gas and diesel and home heating. We're the ones doing something about this ridiculous long-term care payroll ding that is insolvent and wasting people's money. We're the ones who are going to restore the choice of how you heat your home. And if you want to use natural gas to do that, we're going to let you do it.
So
we're the party that is.
That is true. Oh, in fact, not only is that true, but you, Jim Walsh, personally are responsible for much of the initiative content that is covered in these issues that we're talking about. So let me ask you this. We only have a minute.
Okay.
Are you getting mostly good or mostly negative fallout after the convention?
Mostly good. Some of it so good I'm embarrassed by it. People are very complimentary to me personally and to the process. There are a few people who don't like it, John. It's true, but there are a few people who don't like everything. I am encouraged and I'm humbled by the response I've heard. The Seattle Times may not like it. The left-wing pundits may want to make fun of us, but we made fun back at them. I mean, it was comical how much they all were operating, the left media, from the same few words to describe what happened. They called it chaos or chaotic.
So
a lot of these left-wing people had never seen a real convention before.
Yes. No, and I will say it really was more of a real convention than what I've seen from either party in a long, long time. If people want to get involved, if people want to learn more, tell them how to do it.
Oh, you can contact your local county Republican Party, or you can contact me at the state party. The website is WSRP.org. WSRP is for the Washington State Republican Party.
All right. There you go. Jim Walsh, state representative from Grays Harbor County and the state Republican chairman on the John Carlson Show. Thanks, Jim.